Hello, my name is Johan De Bruyne. I'm a software engineer with over 10 years of experience, 6 of them working at Riot Games, where I successfully deliver ecosystems for League of Legends. Now, about 2 years ago, I decided to quit my job and start my own indie educational video game company. And now, there was some difficult times, to be honest, things that I didn't have an idea that they were gonna be a thing. Working from a multinational video game company where you just have to deal with a very narrow scope of problem versus starting to found an indie game company and successfully deliver a couple of commercially viable games was an odyssey. And in this video, I want to explain a little bit about how I managed to identify the different aspects of creating an indie game company, and even I will show you my organizational chart that I created to help me to organize the kind of work and priorities I will have to deal creating these indie games. I hope that this information will help you in your journey and will give you a step forwards in being a successful indie developer. All right, without much further ado, let's go and see our organizational chart. So the first thing I want to mention is that in my company, in Erudis Games, we are 2 full-timers. Originally myself, who adopted the role of a founder, and I drafted my brother, who was able to do a small doodling in a notebook to become our illustrator and graphic design. So that's where my organizational chart starts as a founder. Now, after some time dealing with different kinds of problems, like, okay, how to set up an LLC, how to reach my potential customers, how to get feedback, how to develop our product, how to engineer, etc., I divided the biggest 3 tasks force into product, marketing, and administration. And I think product is where 80% of our time actually went to, so it's the one I'm going to focus first. Now, we divided product into, and by the way, it is true that we have these different districts, these different sections in our company, but in reality, when you are so small, one person must take a lot of hats. Now, at the beginning, I wanted my brother to take everything related to art, but the problem is he didn't have any experience, right, in a product company. He never worked in a video game studio. He even didn't know how to deliver the digital art. So in reality, I had to adopt the role of the art director, guide him, teach him, manage him to acquire the necessary skills. So I managed him so he could teach himself Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, some notions of dynamic sketching and things like that. So I adopted the art director role, or in this case it will be more like the art manager, and I help him to become to be able to handle illustration and some of graphic design. Graphic design is a little bit more technical, and I did have some front-end development, so we share graphic design. He sometimes will develop the design and implement it buttons and things like that. Other times I will be the one, creating, compositing in Photoshop, an infographic or something. So yeah, that's how art direction was split, and is where I had a little bit of work. I was able to offload some of my work to my brother. And this is not, even though this is the end of one of the big buckets, it is quite a bit of work. In reality, probably 30% of the work went through these 2 buckets, because sometimes, there are things in this organizational chart where, yeah, there are a lot of buckets, but not a lot of time went expend to there. And this is probably one of the lessons. You need to identify what kind of work you want to deal with and how much effort you want to put in that work. If your success path is, for example, becoming a Kickstarter and get funded through there, you're probably going to put a lot more effort into the marketing direction, right? Because that's a big part of being to do a Kickstart and to reach as many people early on. And you're not going to put so much effort in like engineering. In my case, I had a good pillow of money stashed at the bank, and I decided to use my own personal savings to fund this journey. And it's part because, educational games, I knew it was going to be hard to sell, at least a priori, without anything in the market. So I knew I had to push the first step using my personal savings. So not a lot of time in marketing. I went through directly product and releasing a game. Anyways, after art direction, I went through and I identified like engineering, right? That's the actual implementation of the game. So a lot of time, and this is why it's in orange, went through game development, Unity, for example. Also, there was some stuff that I had to deal with, like DevOps, right? I needed to make sure that we had unit tests. I needed to make sure that we were able to build and deploy a game. Either like the server, because this is an online game, so we use PlayFab, has our server-side infrastructure. So how to deliver updates to PlayFab, how to update delivers to the App Store, etc. Another big bucket was technical art. Technical art is those things that makes the spark of the game. Animations, particle effects, visual effects, etc., etc. Those things are really important to increase the appeal of the game. If you don't invest in technical art, your game will not look pleasant, and you will not sell as many copies as you would. Finally, tools. That was a big part because with tooling allows you to iterate quicker. So for example, we needed to create the content of the game, which are the questions. And I invested a few weeks into create toolings to be able to update questions using Google Sheets. That speed up the content creation and increased by a lot the quality of our game. So content is fundamental. Tools are fundamentals. And that is a good segue for the game design direction, right? And these are things like, okay, we have to design the system dynamics of the game, the UX design, the balance of the game, and the educational content. This is probably not something that most of indie game companies will have, but it was a fundamental part of here. Now, thanks to the toolings that we created using Google Sheets to iterate through the content, I was able to offload some of the educational content creation to other partners. So that's why I have a couple of circles here, right? Because I have some extra help, and the tooling made it easy enough that educational content creators didn't have to use Unity, for example, to change the content. They could just update those Google Sheets and add more and more content. This also enabled us to repurpose our engine to release multiple games. Like we have launched Grammar Wars, English grammar game, but using those toolings, we were able to also create an ecology game. And we have a couple of new games in the backlog that we might or might not ever release. But that's why tooling is important. So another thing that is important here is someone needs to act as a project manager. And project manager, I put both product and project manager, which is mainly identify what is going to be built. So for example, the first milestone was, let's release a game. Let's release version 1 of Grammar Wars. Then someone needs to think about, okay, how we are going to break down the work of version 1, right? We need the client, we need the server, we need these features, etc. Someone needs to define the next milestone and break it down, so and create deadlines, so you know how to push forward. And this is very, very, very important, because if you don't have a plan and if you don't have deadlines, you are going to get lost into scope creep. You are going to just keep developing things that are not really important to be able to launch the game, and instead of taking 3 to 5 months to deliver the milestone, it will pass 2 years and you don't have nothing to be able to release. Now, in my company, I decided to release in big major releases every 3 to 5 months. Some indie companies, they decide to go in the dark for like 2 years, maybe with some friends and family has playtesters, and then make a big release, a big PR push. You can do that. That's an option. I do not recommend doing that unless you have experience developing games. And because I didn't really have experience developing games, right? At Riot Games, I was building ecosystems. I was more of a web developer. I decided to just quickly push iterations, and that gave me hints of what worked and what didn't work. Like after releasing version 1 of Grammar Wars, I tried to release Cytopolis, an online strategy game, and I realized that the scope of this kind of game was so big that with my resources, like 2 full-timers, we will never be able to deliver something commercially viable. And instead of taking 2 years to realize that, it just took 3 months, because that was the time that I allowed myself to release that game. The other departments, like marketing director, this is important because market research, for example, is the ability to understand what is out there, competitive analysis, what are the other English grammar games out there, what kind of features they have. And also, I include in this bucket playtesters, right? I will search for a playtester and give them the game and get some feedback, see what works, what doesn't. Communication and publishing, this is your social media, this is your press kit, etc. Sales, this is something I wanted to develop more further, and it's mainly trying to create like bundles, codes, and sell those to high schools. It's a lot of work, and I never managed to go deep into it. But I created that bucket because it was something. And feedback, this is more of like surveys and emails to your player base to see what we could make, improve, etc. Finally, administration. This is another part, right? You need to do your paperwork. You need to create those contracts. If you are hiring a contractor to help you with music or with some educational content, you need to create contracts to protect yourself, right? You need to make sure that this is work for hire, and you need to take care of your finance, accounting, how much money you have in the bank, how much is costing the licenses. I calculated that on average, including licenses, equipment, etc., my startup was burning about $2,000 every month. And that's a reality, and that's the money that you don't recover unless you manage to release and sell your game. You need to manage those contractors. You need to deal with IT. The equipment needs to be working right. You need the antivirus. You need the firewalls. That also requires sometimes the networking. And the paperwork, right? So it's true, probably like 5 to 10% of my time went to administration director, and then 15% of time went through marketing, and 80% of my time went for the product management. Now, this is how I organize myself based on my resources, based on my on the kind of people that they were in my team. Your situation will be different, but I hope that this template will help you to have a better idea of what kind of problems you have to deal with. Thank you very much. Like and subscribe if you like the video, and comment if you want to see more content like this. See you later.